The Great is a dark comedy streaming on Hulu starring Elle Fanning as Empress Catherine II and Nicholas Hoult as Emperor Peter III of Russia in the 18th century. The show was created by Tony McNamara, screenwriter of the 2018 period comedy The Favorite. On this podcast, we like to review a recent installment of a different series every show. The Bullet and the Bear is the first episode of Season 3 and the focus of our conversation. It's May 19th, and you're listening to today's episode. Now, I don't know anything about Catherine the Great. In fact, I was shocked when I heard that this was the fourth show centered around her in the last decade. Now, given two of those shows were Russian TV series that came out in 2014 and 2015, but one of them was a Helen Mirren docuseries that came out a few years ago. Never even heard about it. Do you think that Elle Fanning embraces a Helen Mirren type character?
I wouldn't actually go to any of these people and say that they are actually playing the characters they're supposed to be.
And why do you say that?
Because this show is much like Another Period. I also have the Serpent Queen here, Ghost, surprisingly, where it's yes, they'll take characters that exist, but they will make them completely cartoonish, and it's a complete comedy.
Yeah, you couldn't be more right about that. The first two seasons were billed as an occasionally true story. This third season is now an almost entirely untrue story.
I saw that, yeah.
Okay, so they say it right in the show.
Well, I went back to the first episode just to see the first few minutes of it.
Does Elle Fanning look a lot younger?
No, I mean, I would say that they look the same.
Because this is 5 years difference, even though the show's only been out for 3 years. So, but go on.
Yeah, I know, and that's how it starts off. It says The Great, and then right underneath it, they have a little asterisk, and it's whatever you said.
So it's a satirical black comedy drama. Nothing about it is historically accurate.
I wouldn't even
say... But
that's
fun, right?
It's fun, and I thought it was a really good show, but I wouldn't even say it's a black comedy. I just found this to be a complete comedy. I don't think that it's really that dark in any way.
Really? Because this whole season is supposed to be a lot darker. In fact, isn't there a murder in this episode?
Yeah, well, there was a murder in the previous episode. What happened was Catherine apparently wanted to kill Peter, who she was married to, I believe, ever since the show started. Yeah, that's what happens in the first episode. Yeah. But in the season 2 finale, because Peter apparently was fucking Catherine's mom, and then that caused her to die. It was a whole thing that they showed in the previously. She tries to stab Peter, but Peter ended up switching clothes with someone else because just on the off chance that was going to happen.
Yeah, he knew something that was up.
And then the show starts off. The first scene is them in therapy.
Yes.
Like a marriage therapy, trying to kind of work out their differences.
And that's why you compare it to Another Period.
Yes, it's funny.
But this is 50 minutes. Usually a slapstick comedy type of Another Period type show can only last 20 minutes before it gets really long in tooth, before it gets repetitive, before the jokes stop landing.
If What We Do in the Shadows was 50 minutes, yeah, that show would probably be unbearable to watch.
So what keeps the drama alive? What keeps your fascination, focused? What keeps the show running?
That's a good question. It has a genuine story arc to it, and I don't think that any of the characters get as annoying, because even though they might stick to one trait, there's just genuine things I want to see. For example, Orlo, who I don't know if he's been in the show for the full series.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a very big shock then, because he dies by the end of the episode.
That's who I was talking about getting murdered.
Yeah. Oh, that's who you... Okay.
Yeah, that's what the big fan backlash was at the end of this episode.
Interesting.
Well, backlash because there's fans of his, but he was treated sort of like a villain in this episode, right?
He had the funniest storyline because everyone thinks that Peter died from last season.
So no one knows the king is alive.
Catherine must have just told everyone when she stabbed that person 5 times. But when Orlo figures out that Peter actually is alive, he tries to then kill him multiple times. He takes a gun out and starts running after him, and then trips over someone's shoe and ends up firing off a shot and showing.
That's not how he dies, is he?
No.
Okay. Right.
And then he also runs after Peter with a knife at one point in the episode.
And what does Peter do?
And Peter is about to throw him out the window, but then decides better of it because I guess that he knows that Orlo and Catherine are friends. Because the one thing about Peter, I guess the one saving grace about his character in terms of morality is that he really does care about Catherine and is happy to be married to her, even though he knows that she tried to kill him technically, last episode.
I hear the chemistry between Peter and Catherine is actually really good.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. I think with Nicholas Hoult, just in general, and I was even explaining this.
You've seen him recently.
Yeah, in Renfield. Because I was explaining this to a couple friends like a couple days ago when I was talking about Renfield. I didn't like that movie, but just him in general, I'm such a big fan of when it comes to things like Mad Max Fury Road. Skins.
The Beast and X-Men.
Yeah, Beast and X-Men.
You know what his character's name in Mad Max was?
No, I don't.
Nux. Warboy Nux.
Nux?
I never would have guessed it. But he also was in, Nicholas Hoult was also in The Favorite, which was the show that Tony McNamara, or the movie that Tony McNamara wrote, along with Cruella. So what does The Favorite and Cruella also have in common? Emma Stone. And he's actually writing another movie for her called Poor Things, which I think has Mark Ruffalo in it. And it's about a girl who's being brought back to life by a scientist. Comes out at the end of this year or something like that.
Yeah, it sounds like some type of Frankenstein.
But the thing about Nicholas Hoult that you were talking about, he doesn't seem to age too much either.
No, he looks the same in basically everything.
You've seen him in Warm Bodies too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in 2013.
Have you ever not liked one of his performances?
You know, whenever he's been in any movie, I can't think of one where I've ever been like, he's been the problem with it. No.
The only issue I have is I always think of his character from Skins. I'm always like, oh, that's Tony from Skins.
Well, to be fair, also, in the Menu I saw him in as well.
Oh, that's right.
I don't think, but I know that there's been bad movies he's been in.
Does he play a more ridiculous character here than he played in The Menu?
You know, I would say that they're actually the same level of patheticness almost. Because it's like, in The Menu, he's incredibly pathetic in a different way. Here, Peter's more pathetic just because of, like, the stupid things he tries to do throughout the episode.
And for example... Does anyone ever get close to actually killing him besides in the backflash that you saw? Like, does Orlo ever almost kill him?
Yeah, or, I mean, again...
He's getting pretty close?
Yeah, before he ends up dying himself. But, like, what happens in this episode, Tatiana, Smolny, Arkady, Grigors, and Marielle, they're all people who, I guess, back Peter, and that's a big problem. The reason why the episode is called The Bullet or The Bear is because they're going to have to choose whether to die the easy death
or reminded me of
The
Boar on the Floor, like the name of the Succession episode. But, so they have to
either choose the bullet, which would just be a fast death, or they can fight two bears, and if they fight the two bears, the one caveat is that if they end up winning, they'll be able to survive.
But why is it called The Bear then? Why not two bears?
I was wondering that because they show two bears and then they say in the episode you have to fight two bears. So I was.
And are they grizzly bears or are they like the panda bears?
They were black bears. These things were vicious.
Well, black bears actually aren't the vicious ones. I think the grizzly and the brown bears are scarier than the black bears.
I'm always not sure which one you're supposed to act bigger for and which one you're supposed to play dead for because I know that those.
When
are
I
two
think of
different
Russia,
things.
though, I always think of black bears. So I would think that maybe you're fighting a bear that doesn't really want to fight you. And so maybe you have an advantage that way than with a bullet.
I mean, at the end of this episode, when Orlo ends up dying, these two bears rip apart his body.
Is it CGI bears?
Yeah, they did not look real.
Okay. But wait, so who's having to choose this, though? Because I'm assuming the Emperor and the Empress are not choosing to die.
Well, Catherine does not feel that these five have their loyalty to her. They have their loyalty completely to Peter. In fact, that's why Peter, throughout the episode, is trying to break them out of having to even do this thing.
So in the first season, she was supposed to be all naive and innocent and just coming into this marriage as kind of an outsider. But now she's supposed to be taking power and being very individualistic.
Yes.
And so that's where she's at already in her mindset.
Yeah.
Like, even with the therapy going on with their marriage, she's also like, well, I'm also the boss.
I should probably explain that at the very beginning of the episode, they show them in therapy, but then it does a 24-hour backflash. Like, this is how they ended up getting there.
Okay, all right.
And then you have also Georgina Demov, who must have done something to Catherine. They may have shown it in previous seasons, but she apparently is now showing her loyalty towards her as well. So it seems like, Catherine is really kind of taking over at this point. But I think the real selling point in this show is just the comedy and how well it ends up working.
So you were finding laugh out loud moments the entire time. Elle Fanning's performance, was she the one driving the comedy, or as a serious character, like was she telling jokes, or who you've already said Nicholas Hoult was sort of the comic relief.
Yeah, Peter was probably my favorite character just because of how ridiculous he is. And then you have Archie as well, who was played by just recently in Succession, the monkey
Adam
from
Godley.
Succession. Yeah, that was surprising to see him there.
Well, when you say the monkey, he's played the Umbrella Academy.
That's what
Pogo guy.
But most recently, I've seen him in Succession, which was just
you weren't just saying he looks
surprise.
like a monkey.
No, obviously
that would be rude.
Obviously not. But those two, I was really glad to see there.
I do want to touch on Elle Fanning because she is the main character here. What have you seen her in before this?
I honestly cannot tell you now.
You remember that it's the girl in Super 8. She's also, of course, Dakota Fanning's sister. She's played Princess Aurora in Maleficent. In like the 2 movies they've had of that, but we actually did talk about her in a podcast because she was the main girl in The Girl from Plainville.
Oh, okay.
To which you did the research for, so maybe that'll jog your memory. But so her and him, they work together pretty well. You're saying the comedy is the best aspect of the show. And Orlo's fate, let's get to that.
Orlo's fate, yeah. So at the very end of the episode, actually Catherine is able to make peace with everyone that she talks to. Apparently, I think it was like Grigors and Arcady are going to have a drink at a bar and then get kicked in the balls repeatedly until they piss blood.
Wow.
Okay. So yeah, I mean,
Grigor, you might know from Bohemian Rhapsody. I didn't recognize him.
I didn't recognize him in it. No.
Okay.
And then you have Marielle. There was apparently that's I think the biggest thing in this episode. Catherine and Marielle, they used to be friends, and Catherine basically cuts off her friendship completely. Is like, you're allowed to stay in the court, which I assume is where they're living, but also like our friendship is completely done. Tatiana and Smolny, they have their own thing as well. But the point is, it seems like everything is going well too, because Peter and Catherine, they're walking in the woods, and Peter's just like, can we just forget everything that's happened and kind of start anew and everything? They're already going to therapy. Catherine says, that's fine. They hear a crack of leaves in the woods, which we see is Orlo. He has found the gun again, and he's about to kill Peter, and Catherine shoots near where she hears the sound, and we don't actually see Orlo die.
And is it up to interpretation, or do you know if she knows?
So Catherine and Peter don't know that Orlo is dead.
And you're sure that, because some people speculated that maybe Catherine was aware of it.
That would be craziness because we never see them know. In fact, they just walk away, but then the camera pans over his body and we see a bullet hole in his brain.
Do you think they did him dirty?
It was definitely dirty because, like I said, do you think that they did his character bad? Like, if he's been around since the first season, would you be upset if you invested that much amount of time? I can see where the anger would come in for something like that, but also it seemed like his character was kind of asking for it.
Yeah,
it seemed like this whole entire episode. And by the end of the episode, I'm sure they're not...
Did he try to kill him with a baby in his hand? Did I read that right? Like, I thought that I read that he tried to kill him with a baby.
That was, I believe, Peter after Orlo came at him with a knife. And he was about to throw him out the window. Yeah, so Peter had the baby.
All right.
But at the very end of the episode, like I said, the 2 bears, they end up finding Orlo's body. They rip him to shreds. So I assume that either Catherine and Peter are not going to figure out what happened to Orlo, or through some crazy coincidence that probably happens later throughout the season, they'll be like, oh, that's how Orlo ended up dying.
And so just to understand this perfectly, because you said that this is the bullet in the bear because there was someone who was going to be choosing that option, but then you also said that Catherine had made amends or worked out a relationship with everyone. So who was ultimately going to be the one who was going to face that challenge?
All 5 that I mentioned before, Tatiana, Smolny, Arcady, they were having
when they went to speak to her, that's when they were like, oh, we don't want to do this?
Yeah, that's when Catherine decided to take all of them. She kind of took pity on them after talking to really Arcady and I believe a different person as well, and then also Peter, and she kind of realized that if she were to do this, it would not reflect well on her, and it would definitely complicate things with Peter as well.
So tell me what you thought. Like, what would you give the episode?
Overall, I'd give the episode an 8 out of 10, and I would definitely consider going back and watching the first 2 seasons, because this just felt, as much as I'm talking about death and everything, like a very lighthearted show, and I don't really honestly think that... I mean, I would be surprised if this got bad reviews.
Before we get into that, I want to play a quick game. True or false? I have like 4 or 5 here, and you just tell me what you think.
Are these going to be on history? Because I'm not great with that.
Not really. It should be pretty simple, actually.
Okay.
In a 1995 Catherine the Great television movie, Catherine was played by Catherine Zeta-Jones. True or false?
True.
True.
Okay.
One of the Great's episodes is titled Dickhead.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds true.
That sounds true, so it's true.
Yeah,
it is true.
Okay.
One of the Greats episodes is titled War and Vomit.
I'm gonna go with false because I haven't said that yet.
It's true.
Okay.
All right, and then this was all filmed in Russia.
False? Because, well, you did say the Russia thing before, and your hesitancy makes me want to change it to true now.
No, it is false. Obviously, they wouldn't be able to film in Russia, especially with that was supposed to be an easy one. However, it does obviously take place in Russia.
Yeah, I was going
to
say,
18th century Russia. They filmed it in England and Italy. Tons of castles. That's what makes it like not another period or one of those really cheap kind of comedies. Because these are like really expensive sets. You've got really top list actors here, and then also the costuming itself. They had an intimacy coordinator, and I didn't talk about the sex in the show, but is there any sex in this first episode?
I meant to bring that up, and I'm glad you did. Not only is there a lot of sex in this first episode, and it seemed like it was almost one of those sex comedies. It's just it could be literally anyone. In fact, it's
just an orgy of sex throughout the entire first episode.
Yeah, like I believe that Peter just walks in on an orgy that's already taken place at one point. You see a ton of sex happen in
Does Orlo try to kill him during an orgy?
No, obviously not. But yeah, no, it was actually, I know this is TVMA, and that's why I was thinking that's probably the reason why it's mostly gotten that.
Well, the person who is the intimacy coordinator, Catherine Hardman, who has an excellent name if you're going to be an intimacy coordinator, she actually said that the costumes are really hard because they have like 30 minutes to get in and out of them. So when they have like quickies and stuff that they need to do, they always keep their clothes on, and it's only for like the super intimate scenes where they're able to get
now
the
that
clothes
I'm thinking about it, yeah, because at the very beginning of the episode, Catherine and Peter are about to have sex, and yeah, I think even when Peter was going to fuck Catherine's mom, she has her clothes on as well. Wow. So yeah, it's kind of crazy.
And then when we were talking about intimacy coordinators and the Fatal Attraction podcast that we did, it just got me thinking about like where did they come from? Because I know that they only came around in the last 10 years since the Me Too movement in like 2014 and post. And there's one lady who did like take the charge for it, but like most of them are actually old actors, like other who used to be actors or still are maybe, but they also went into like stunt and fight coordinators who just decided to like transition over to intimacy coordinators, which I'm sure they have to take classes for and stuff. But that's just a fact out there.
You talking about the costuming did remind me a little bit of the Gilded Age when we were doing that podcast, because I remember the costumes were kind of such a big part in that as well.
100%. And the budget on that was crazy. I tried to look up the budget on this one too, but I couldn't find anything on it. And then the last true or false question I had for you was one of the places they filmed was called Ham House.
Ham House?
Ham House.
Well, everything has been true so far.
That's not true. The Russia one wasn't true.
Oh, the Russia one was false. I'll go with the Ham House being true.
Okay, well, it is true. And the other comparison people have made is to Archer.
Archer? Like the type of comedy, maybe? I honestly can't see that comparison as much as anything else.
And then there's something about a dance scene that happens.
Yeah, that was very strange. So right before Peter is about to go and break out all 5 people from having to choose between the bullet or the bear.
So he gets to break the good news.
Well, he doesn't get to break the good news. He's about to break them out.
Break them out to go have to do it?
Yes, that's
not breaking someone out. That's having
well, that's literally...
Does he want them to die? Is that really
No. Peter, again,
he's fighting for them.
He knows that they are all loyal to him. Yeah. So he himself is about to go and do this. He's even like ordering horses so that he can ride in and with a gun and just start shooting random people, which he does. That was a funny scene as well. But right beforehand, Elizabeth tries to stop him because she knows how much Peter values the marriage between him and Catherine. Mm-hmm. And she's like, if you do this, you are going to be like absolutely insane. Like she's never going to forgive you. And it was honestly one of, I thought, the weakest jokes. I didn't really understand where it landed because she just starts randomly dancing in front of him, and then I think gives him a macaron to eat, and then he eats it, and that was the end of the...
Do you know what the difference between a macaron and a macaroon is?
I have no idea.
Okay, one of them has the colors, and it's that color cookie. I think that's the macaron, and the macaroon one is just like the puffy pineapple.
Yeah, that's what he eats.
So it's a macaroon.
Right,
yeah. And so, yeah, let's get to the reviews. This has an 8.2 on IMDb. The episode does, and so does the show. And actually, every season that's come out has gotten better and better reviews. Collider actually called it much darker this season than it has been before, but also better than before. So that's what was confusing to me when you said that this was just like a comedy and only a comedy.
That reminds me, it's actually a little bit like Dickinson, if you remember, because I remember you said that Dickinson, the season that I watched, apparently was supposed to be a lot darker, and it definitely is in the same vein as this.
It doesn't use modern music, though, does it?
No.
Okay, yeah, I think I looked up the music person, and that they are the same people who've done Greenleaf, The Americans, Carnival Row. The person's name is Nathan Barr. Also, Pace Decider, AV Club, all gave season 3 positive reviews. Obviously, you're not going to get as many reviews as you would when the show first comes out, but Metacritic has basically said that now it has universal acclaim, whereas it's funny because Decider gave it a terrible review in its first season. And so they've come back around and they've changed it up. Different writer, but I found that really interesting. You give it an 8. Overall, it has an 8.2 on IMDb. I think we've settled this episode as a good one to watch. Yeah. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.